This is not the movie with Bruce Willis and Kim Basinger. Okay. Alright everybody, this time we're checking out 1984's Blind Date. Let's go to the trailer.
Your blind date is coming. No wonder you're a little nervous. But don't worry. He goes out with a lot of pretty girls. And he knows how to treat a lady. He's not wired quite right. But he knows how to have a good time. And no one ever complains. Blind date. You won't be coming home in one piece.
Okay, this motion picture was directed by Nico Mastorakis. He is a Greek director. He directed a lot of movies, stuff like Ninja Academy, Hired to Kill, In the Cold of the Night, .com for Murder, Death Street USA. I don't want to sit here and pretend that this guy went on to direct the greatest motion pictures of all time, nor is this the greatest motion picture of all time. But it is what it is, so we're going to have some fun with it. All right, let's keep going. Okay, starring as Jonathan, we got Joseph Bottoms. Now, if you remember, I had him in another motion picture I reviewed not too long ago, the classic Disney classic, The Black Hole. But again, we'll go through some of the movies he was in on top of that. Anyway, he was in a bunch of stuff like The Dove, Crimes and Passion, Cloud Dancer, King of the Mountain, Surfacing. He was in a bunch of TV shows from Street Legal to just a bunch of things. He had a fairly decent career. Never went on to be the kind of leading man that you might thought he would, but he had a good run of it. So he was in this. He was in the Black Hole. Go check out my review for that. So anyway, still moving on. Okay, playing Claire, we got Kirstie Alley. Now, Kirstie Alley is, come on, she was on Cheers forever. She was Savick in Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan. She was in the Look Who's Talking flicks with John Travolta, you know what I mean? And she's also done, God knows, I think she did like Fat Actress, and she did a bunch of stuff about her weight loss, up, down, up, down, up, down. But this was a long time ago, in 1984 for her, and you get to see Kirstie Alley when she was peak Kirstie Alley, may we say. All right, let's keep going. Okay, playing Dave was James Daughton. Now, James Daughton was in a bunch of stuff back in the day. He was in Spies Like Us. He was in Animal House. He was in the V miniseries. He was in, I think he even popped up in the original Planet of the Apes as some bit part in that. He was in a lot of 80s flicks, folks. He was in The Beach Girls, which is a classic. He was in Swim Team. He was in a bunch of stuff, you know what I mean? It was that time. It was that era. His face popped up a whole lot, So as soon as you see him in this motion picture, you're like, oh, yeah, I seen that dude. All right, let's keep rolling. Okay, playing Rachel was Lana Clarkson. Lana Clarkson had a long list of movies, especially in the TV world and the B-movie realm. Obviously, she was in this. She was on things like Barbarian Queen, 18 Wheels of Justice, the TV show. She was in Vice Girls. She was in Female Mercenaries and Death Stalker, and she was in a bunch of stuff. She was on a lot of TV shows like The A-Team and Did I say Three's Company already? I can't remember. Sadly, she kind of is probably most remembered for being murdered by Phil Spector, the record producer. She was the girl he shot in his place and went to jail for murder for probably the rest of his ancient friggin' life. So it's kind of sad that she met that kind of fate. But, you know, Lana Clarkson, she had a decent career while it was going. So, is what it is, folks. Hate to say it. Okay, playing Dr. Steiger was Keir Dullea. He, which you all know, was in the legendary Once Only Happens in a Lifetime, if not more, 2001: A Space Odyssey by Stanley Kubrick. He'll always be that guy. I mean, he's been in other movies. He never had like a really great career, but he's always going to be that guy. You know, every time you see it, you just hear Hal talking to him or something. You know, so he pops up in this. It was cool seeing him. His hair was radically different, so he looked a little bit, you know, it was like, what? But yeah, it's him. Anyway, going on. Okay, here's a fun one. She didn't have a big role in the motion picture. Actually, she's just credited as this hooker, because she was a hooker. But was Marina Sirtis, who we all know is Counselor, you know, Deanna Troi from Star Trek The Next Generation. You know what I mean? But I had to point out that she was in this just because she was in this. You know, she was in this. She was in the movie called The Wicked Lady with Faye Dunaway. She's been in a zillion movies and a zillion TV shows since then, and everything Star Trek related. But way early in her career, when she was really a nobody of nobody, she just played hooker in this motion picture. So just cool to see Marina Sirtis pop up. What more can I say? I'm not going to get to her whole career because the role she did in this movie doesn't warrant it. But whatever, you know what I mean? She's in it. I could go scene by scene what happens in this movie, but I don't think I'm going to do that for this one. It's kind of a weird movie, and it wouldn't make any sense to you. So I'm just going to break this down, kind of where it goes. Okay, the story of this motion picture is as follows. You got this young guy, Jonathan. He's like a 32-year-old guy, and he's working at this ad agency where there's models and they're doing photography and all this other kind of stuff. And he sees a girl, and this girl reminds him of this girl he dated when he was younger. A girl that, when they were out on the date, these guys approached him and beat him up, and they raped her, and he was kept separate from her by her family for the rest of their existence. He never got to see what happened to her. Time goes by, he's working for this ad agency, he's dating Kirstie Alley, which is, you know, nobody can knock that. He seems to have everything going on, his life is going pretty complete, but once he sees this girl, it all comes back to him, and he starts oddly stalking her. I mean, it's like you're wondering through this motion picture, is he a good guy or a bad guy or a freak or something like that? Because he's just basically stalking this girl that he thinks is his ex-girlfriend. And he's watching her with binoculars and all this other kind of stuff. But that puts him in a couple of strange places at a couple of strange times, where he becomes like semi-witness to a murder that he didn't know was a murder, whatever. At the same time, we got some guy driving around. He's a taxi driver. But he likes to pick up women or stalk women while he's driving around. And as he's stalking them, he gets out, he ties them up, he puts on doctor's gloves and a scalpel, and he murders them. That's the gist of this motion picture, until it takes a strange turn. One time he's out there stalking this girl that he thinks that he might have dated, but he isn't sure, blah, blah, blah. Her boyfriend gets out of the car and starts chasing him. As he's chasing him, Jonathan runs down this embankment, and he's going through the dirt, and he's running down a hill, and he bangs his head in a tree. Wakes up the next day, he's completely blind. He's in the hospital, nobody can figure out what's wrong with him, nobody can figure out why there's something wrong with him. Everything in the tests show that he's completely perfect. There's no reason he should be blind. There's no reason there should be a problem with him, but nobody can seem to figure out why. But a doctor that he gets hooked up with gives him a chance to see again. Kind of. He gives him this experimental surgery that lets him see with echolocation, much like a bat would see, or maybe even a whale underwater, whatever you want to call it. And they perform the surgery on Jonathan. Now, here's the best part of this thing. The device that he can see through is a Sony Walkman. I guess it wasn't in the budget. I don't know what they were doing. But he wears a Sony Walkman on his side. Fast forward means, you know, on. Reverse means off. And it's just bizarre. And they put a little metal plate in his head that you never really get to see. And somehow you know those 80s Walkmans that were really cheesy? They had little orange things there and the metal clap across the top. They kind of just look like goofy shit. You know what I mean? They're like, you get it at any dollar store these days, I think. That's the device that locks into his brain. And when he turns it on, the the Walkman sends out a high-pitched echo, and he can see everything around him, but it's in rough outline. I mean, he can't read, he can't see through glass, but it's enough to get him around. And now that he has that ability back, he decides to keep even stalking his former girlfriend even more to make sure it's her or not. And he's watching her while she sleeps. And the movie gets really weird. You're like, who is the good guy and who's the bad guy in this? They're just all so creepy and weird. But I don't want to give you more than that. Okay, Blind Date is kind of a strange flick. You know what I mean? It's one of those movies, I swear during the first 45 minutes of it, they probably don't have but 7 lines of dialogue. There is not much going on in this motion picture. I mean, it's like you're watching everything take place with this weird, cheesy, goofy, shitty 80s music playing in the background, and you're not really sure what you're watching. You're watching this, you know, stalky ex-boyfriend, you're watching a murderer take place, you're watching this, and then it turns into a sci-fi flick with the worst prop ever, a Sony Walkman taking the place of some real prop that they probably could have made for $20, but they just said, fuck it, we're just going to use a Sony Walkman for it, and, you know, everybody just believed that you could see through a Sony Walkman. I don't know. But underneath it all, the movie is still strangely entertaining. The second half of it is probably better than the first half of it because people actually speak in the motion picture during the second half. You get to see his adventures being blind and getting, you know, beat up in a subway, and there's all kinds of stuff that takes place. If anything, this movie is great for also, you get to see Kirstie Alley and Marina Sirtis when they were young hot chicks and actually topless in them. So hey, how can you not love that? Blind Date is like one of those movies where I would say, watch it, enjoy it, have some fun. The pacing is kind of weird in the beginning. The acting is kind of hokey. The directing is not that great. But you're still going to walk away saying, this wasn't bad for like a B-level, whatever budget motion picture. It has dated badly as some other motion pictures were that were actually much better. Like when you see Manhunter, you say, my God, that thing reeks of the 80s. But it's still a great motion picture. You see To Live and Die in L.A., you say, man, that thing reeks of the 80s. But it's still a great motion picture. This thing reeks of the 80s. And it was never a great motion picture, but it was actually entertaining, fun to watch, and it fits into a certain genre of boobs, murder, sci-fi, thriller, done it up, reasonably enjoyable level. Anyway, everybody have a good time. Go check out Blind Date from 1984. I actually found it much more enjoyable than Blind Date with Bruce Willis, and then they did another Blind Date a couple of years ago. There's like Blind Date movies all over the place. But go out, enjoy it, have a fun time, check it out. It's worth the watch. I mean, it's not great, it's not bad, but it's worth the watch. Is what it is. Catch you later, people.